Lawyers of Reddit, what is a detail that your client failed to bring up to you that completely lost you the case? That he filmed his offenses for his YouTube channel. The cops didn't even know. A witness brought it up on day 3 of a trial. It was a nice quick change of plea that afternoon.
So you're saying it's just a prank, bro? Isn't a valid legal defense?
Not since Prankster v. Bro in 1986.
A friend of mine is a defense attorney. He was representing a guy with a lengthy record for assault. Basically, this guy took an A/C unit and threw it at his girlfriend. My buddy tells me he was able to get a plea deal for 1 year probation, no jail time. The judge is all ready to accept the deal when he asks the defendant if he had anything he would like to say. The defendant responds, "Yeah, I don't know why they charging me with assault. I never touched her. I just threw an A/C at her. This is bull crap." Judge rescinded plea deal because of the defendant's attitude/lack of remorse. Went to trial and got a year in jail.
The idea of having an A/C unit thrown at me is honestly terrifying.
A case as a paralegal. Negligence case. The client argued that a lack of streetlights and a cyclist he couldn't see was responsible for him hitting a wire pole. Upon discovery, the first respondent's report indicated that they found the driver in the driver's seat, pants down with porn playing on the phone. It was difficult to figure out who was negligent at that point.
Your Honor, if the cable repairman had simply fixed the cable in accordance with professional standard practices, my client would have had no other recourse but to keep his ostrich in the corral on the evening in question.
A guy in prison hired me to request a modification of his sentence because he was doing very well, completing a lot of optional programs, no rule violations, etc. He had his family come in and pay and everything to get started. I asked the family and the client if he had requested modification before, because the law said that for his conviction, he could only request modification twice for any one sentence, regardless of if they were granted or denied. Swore up and down he'd never filed before. You can see where this is going. After spending a few hours going over records and preparing documents, a copy of the CCS, the case record, basically finally arrived. He'd personally filed for modification 6 times since he was sentenced with handwritten pleadings that were all denied. So the one he hired me for was a waste of time and would never be considered at all. I'm a court-appointed attorney for qualifying individuals in family matters. Termination of parental rights case. I have been fighting to argue that the parent is stable, working lawfully, has a suitable apartment, doesn't need psychotropic meds anymore, ready to be a parent, etc. After a few months of negotiating with all the parties in the Department of Children, Court Services, we have a pre-trial to try and convince guardians. I meet with my client before the hearing to see if anything changed. Nope, all good, let's get my kids. Great, that's not happening today, but let's try. We get going in court. My client, who is super hot, headed and quick to anger, gets riled up and goes off on the guardians, screaming in open court. It doesn't end there, but reveals 1, that no longer is working, 2, no longer an apartment, 3, doesn't want to have a relationship with guardians despite her kids loving them, 4, won't send her kids pictures of the toys they miss and can't have, 5, plans on moving out of state, 6, think they can live as a family off of state aid when she gets them back and is 4 months pregnant. All in a matter of 15 seconds. I was too shocked to even react. Speechless. Not the image of stability and parental fitness I've been trying to paint since last July. Edit to clarify, client was working really hard to get everything right, and legitimately had everything going for her prior to this hearing. I was not making false representations or trying to get a monster reinstated. This was a true bombshell as I did my due diligence to make sure things were on the up and up and statutory requirements were met. Things fell apart very fast apparently. This was a very atypical situation. Parents typically do a really good job working hard to meet their requirements. Foster/adoptive parent here. The first kid we had, we went to the plea hearing for the bio parents. We were on adaptive track and child attorney recommended we go. They plead not guilty. This was not their first TPR. It was clear bio dad was on something. Bio mom was newly out of rehab. Bio mom said in court she had to have 8 teeth pulled and would take pain pills. The judge told them if they did not appear for any pre-trial hearing he would terminate. They did not show up for the next one. Biomom attorney stood up in court and said her client has not returned her call since last hearing. We were at a visit 2 days before, and I heard CP.S tell Biomom her hearing was in 2 days. Judge terminated. All CPS workers were congratulating us because now we could start adoption. I was so sad. My son is amazing. I could not imagine not showing up for him. I love him so much, and it has been years since adoption. I know he was meant to be with us, but that day was truly a sad day. I still get tears in my eyes. Biomom did not even call CPS for goodbye visit for 8 months. We'd already adopted it by then. I'm a public defender in an area with lots of meth use. Meth makes most people talk. A lot. So I can't tell you how many clients forget to mention that they got to the jail still high and called their mom/girlfriend/buddy on the recorded jail phone and not only confessed to the crime, but also brainstormed whatever alibi or version of events I'm relying on to defend them. Edit. I'm seeing this question a lot, so I'll add some info here. This is not legal advice, just explaining things a bit more. Calls to a lawyer are privileged and generally go through dedicated lines that aren't recorded, depending on the facility. Calls to family, friends, etc. through the normal phones are not privileged, are generally recorded, and can be used in court. There are usually printed signs near the phones and a recorded warning before each call that this is the case. Not my client, but the son of the opposing party, and presumably the party himself lied about being blind to make himself seem more sympathetic as a witness. We didn't know either until he took the witness box. Their counsel asked him to take the oath, and he picked the card up and read it. That was the cherry on top of a series of ridiculous events. The judge dismissed the whole thing in our client's favor shortly after. I was a trainee at the time, but my boss, who was in her late 60s then, said it was the most ridiculous case she'd ever handled. Lawyer in the UK. I acted for a member of a famous pedophile hunting group. My client was charged with various offenses relating to his vigilantism, most seriously causing grievous bodily harm with intent. He wanted me to fight the case on a public interest defense point that is not available to him in statute or at common law, contrary to my advice. I followed his instructions as I'm bound to do. If the state won't punish pedophiles properly, then it's left to men like my client to take the law into their own hands. A horse's **T argument for a whole host of reasons. His laptop was seized by police and submitted for forensic examination. He had a staggeringly huge database of child pornography on it. He himself was a massive pedo. I'm actually a lawyer, but I was only watching this trial, not participating. So the case was that woman A had hit woman B in the head with a heavy beer pint at a bar, and woman B got pretty serious injuries. The defense claimed that woman A had not hit anyone with the pint, but instead had just thrown the pint into a random direction, and it happened to hit B in the head, thus it was an accident and not a battery. Well, the prosecution had a CCTV tape from the bar, and it was shown at the trial. And the tape clearly showed in HD as a walked behind B and smashed the pint to her head so hard that the pint shattered on impact. I looked at the defense lawyer and his jaw literally almost hit the table. The prosecutor also noticed this and asked something along thrown A. And the defense lawyer said that due to technical difficulties he couldn't get the CCTV tape open on his computer when he was reviewing the evidence. Woman A was found guilty. So yeah, I was completely dumbfounded. My father is a judge. I remember him talking about a case where a woman was suing for a severe back injury that she said was preventing her from working and taking care of her kids, and so on. In the middle of the trial, a pen rolled off the table and she is bending over trying to reach it from her chair. But the pen was too far away, so she stands up and bends over and picks it up and goes back to her seat, as if nothing is out of the ordinary. My dad is just looking at her and she snaps at my dad and goes, "What are you staring at?" My dad asked her if she was okay and her response was that she was fine. Her attorney leaned over and said something to her and she then loudly started complaining about her back and how much her back hurt, but no one believed her lol.
She snapped at the judge and said, "What are you staring at?"
This one ended my marriage. Well, it was the start of the end of marriage. My husband lost his job in the title/mortgage business. Applied for unemployment. Got denied. I decided to help him with his appeal hearing. I asked him multiple times before the hearing, "Is there anything you did that caused them to fire you?" He says, "No, absolutely not." They fired him out of nowhere. The hearing day comes. He testifies under oath that he did nothing wrong, was a good employee, no issues. Upon cross-examination, the other attorney pulls out documents from one of his real estate closings, documents he forged and backdated. Had to admit he perjured himself. Needless to say, he didn't get unemployment, and he didn't sleep at home that night. Not me, but my mentor. This is the reason you never ask questions that you don't already know the answer to in court. During the trial with the judge on a divorce matter, the wife brought up that he had abused her during the course of their marriage. The client whispers to my mentor that that is absolutely not true. On the stand during his portion of testimony, my mentor asks, at any point in the marriage, did you lay your hands on your wife? One time we were having an argument and I held her down on the couch until she stopped arguing with me. What? My mentor said it was like she could see it happening in slow motion, and all the alarm bells were going off in her head because he had never mentioned this, and, apparently, to him this was not abuse. The judge gave the wife a lot more money as a result, and the husband was baffled. My mentor was fuming. Edit, the husband admitted this was the only time he had laid hands on the wife. My mentor was more peeved because she had thought the case was in the bag since the wife had abandoned the kids with her husband to run off with her lover down in Florida and literally only came back to the state to get the divorce done. The husband had been noted as being a great dad to the kids and a good figure in the community. Hence why she was so dang shocked at his answer. The client in a family law matter lied to me about using meth. Then used meth with the child in the room, and the ex got footage of it on the nanny cam and then made excuses about why they couldn't do a drug test. Then blamed me when they lost custody, despite the fact that they did show up to appointments or return my calls, so I couldn't prepare any court material. I dumped the client after that and left family law. I'm still a law student, and this happened during my first internship at a court. A girl, among other people, was charged with drug possession, but because she had thrown away the drugs and the police couldn't prove that she bought or the drugs, it could have been one of the other people as well who still had drugs on them. The judge ruled in dubio pro reo. He then asked if she wants to say/it something, and this girl asked if she can get her drugs back. The defense attorney looked like he was about to get a heart attack. Edit, for those wondering, I know what in dubio pro reo means, but I wasn't sure if they used the term in other countries and tried to explain it if not. This happened in Germany. Not strictly a court case, but boneheaded stupidity. A number of people have given a false name to police to avoid an arrest warrant, but got arrested when the false name matched someone with an outstanding arrest warrant. Credit card theft/fraud case. When I was a young lawyer back in the late 80s, I was trying this guy on a CC case, and the witness was the department store clerk. Before video surveillance, the state relied heavily on witness identification. As she described the customer that was purchasing the very unique clothing her store sold, I asked her how could she be so sure it was my client. She looked at my client, who was wearing the most obnoxiously yellow shirt imaginable, and said, because not only does he completely match the description I just gave you, but he's wearing the exact same shirt I sold him. The jury convicted him, and I learned that they did better prepare my clients for trial. Had a work comp case where a client claimed he fell off the side of his truck while putting a tarp over the load and hurt his back. It seemed legit, as he was taken to a hospital and they had given him meds. As we were pursuing the case, it turns out the company had a surveillance camera. The injury seemed fishy to the employer, so they looked at the recording. It turns out the idiot had climbed off the side of the truck, then laid down on the ground and started yelling for help. He had made the whole thing up. No wonder employers question work comp injuries. This guy ruined it for the legitimate claims. A defendant was written a cell phone ticket while driving and defended himself. Your Honor, I was not using a smartphone while driving. I was actually using a flip phone. Guilty. Unfair dismissal case. The client claimed to have been dismissed without reason or following procedure. After we had started the case, it comes out that not only was he given 3 written warnings, but he was also called in for a disciplinary hearing before his dismissal. Don't lie to your lawyer. Not mine, but went to court over a ticket. Lady was in front of me for DUI and hit and run. The judge assigns a lawyer for her since she was so shook she quit her job. The judge asked the prosecuting attorney for details on the case. She legit says, "You mean the car I had while I was intoxicated?" The judge stops, takes his glasses off, and says, "Everything is recorded in this courtroom. I told you not to talk to anyone about your case except the attorney that I assigned for you." You could tell he was ready to walk out of the room with the level of stupidity this lady showed.
Thanks for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe to Karma Farm to get more videos just like this.